a picture-perfect marriage. Sarah had always believed she was living a dream. From the moment she met Daniel, he had been the perfect husband, kind, caring, and devoted. Their marriage was the kind people admired, full of laughter, shared dreams, and a deep connection that made Sarah feel safe. She often caught herself smiling at the little things he did, bringing her coffee in bed, leaving sweet notes on the fridge, or simply holding her hand while they watched TV. But perfection has a way of unraveling, thread by thread. It started with the small things. A late-night phone call that Daniel dismissed as work. A locked drawer in his study he never used to keep locked. A sudden nervousness when she picked up his phone, even to hand it to him. Sarah ignored it at first, reassuring herself that she was overthinking. Every marriage had its mysteries, and Daniel had never given her a reason to doubt him. Then one evening, while folding laundry, she found something odd. A shirt she had never seen before. It was expensive, tailored, and smelled faintly of unfamiliar cologne. When she asked Daniel about it, he laughed it off. "A friend at work gifted it to me," he said, too casually. It was a harmless answer, but something about his tone made her uneasy. The uneasiness grew. A week later, Sarah noticed Daniel had changed his phone's passcode. He had never hidden anything from her before. She didn't want to be the kind of wife who snooped, so she said nothing. But when he started coming home later than usual, always with vague explanations, her anxiety deepened. One afternoon, while cleaning their bedroom, she found an old shoebox tucked away in the back of Daniel's closet. It was odd, because Daniel was not the type to keep things stuffed in forgotten corners. Curiosity got the better of her. She pulled it out, lifted the lid, and felt her breath catch in her throat. Inside were papers, old letters, photographs, and a small leather notebook. The first picture she saw was of Daniel, but younger, standing next to a woman she didn't recognize. They looked close, almost intimate. The letters were even stranger. Some were written to someone named Lena, full of words of love, promises, and regret. Her hands shook as she flipped through the notebook. Scribbled pages detailed dates, locations, and cryptic notes. One entry stood out. "She can never know. It would ruin everything." Sarah's heart pounded. Who was Lena? What was Daniel hiding? Had her perfect marriage been nothing but a beautiful illusion? That night, when Daniel came home, she watched him differently. He kissed her cheek, smiled the same warm smile, but now it felt rehearsed, forced. She wanted to ask him about the box, about the letters, about the name Lena, but something inside her told her she might not be ready for the truth. The late-night phone calls. Sarah stirred awake to the sound of her husband's phone buzzing on the nightstand. The soft glow of the screen lit up the dark room, casting an eerie light on Daniel's face as he turned away from her. She pretended to be asleep, but her heart pounded. It was the third time this week, always past midnight, always with Daniel answering in hushed tones. "Hello?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Sarah held her breath, straining to catch the other end of the conversation. She couldn't make out the words, but whoever was calling spoke urgently. Daniel muttered a few short replies, his tone clipped before hanging up. He lay back down, but she could feel the tension in his body. He wasn't relaxed. He was thinking. The next morning, Sarah casually asked, "Who keeps calling you so late?" Daniel didn't meet her eyes. "Work stuff," he said quickly. "Some client in a different time zone." Sarah nodded but felt uneasy. Daniel had always been honest with her until recently. She told herself it was nothing, that she was overthinking, but doubt gnawed at her. That night she stayed awake on purpose. When the phone rang again, she watched Daniel glance at her before slipping out of bed and into the bathroom. The door clicked shut. This time she got up and tiptoed closer. Through the door, his voice was low but urgent. "I told you not to call this late. No, I can't talk now. Just wait, okay?" Wait for what? Sarah's blood ran cold. She felt her knees weaken as she hurried back to bed before he could catch her eavesdropping. When Daniel returned, she kept her breathing steady, pretending to sleep. He slipped under the covers, but she could tell. He wasn't sleeping either. The next day, she made up her mind. While Daniel was in the shower, she grabbed his phone. It was locked. He had changed the passcode again. A fresh wave of panic hit her. What was he hiding? That evening, she devised a plan. She set up a small voice recorder on the nightstand, hidden beneath some books. If he got another call, she'd finally hear the truth. Hours passed. Sarah barely slept. Then, at 2:13 a.m., the phone vibrated. She clenched her fists as Daniel took the call and left the room again. The next morning, when he left for work, Sarah retrieved the recorder with shaking hands. She pressed play. A woman's voice. Software. Desperate. "Daniel, please. You promised. I can't do this alone anymore." Sarah's heart stopped. Who was this woman? What had Daniel promised her? And why did she sound so heartbroken? A hidden safe in the basement. The basement had always been Daniel's space. Sarah rarely went down there. He used it as a storage area and a workspace for fixing things around the house. But today, as she dusted the shelves and rearranged old boxes, she noticed something odd. In the far corner, behind a stack of old suitcases, a small section of the floor looked different. The tiles didn't match the rest, as if they had been replaced at some point. Curious, Sarah moved the suitcases aside and crouched down, running her fingers over the surface. That's when she saw it, a thin metal handle embedded in the floor. Her pulse quickened. She pulled at the handle, and to her shock, a hidden panel lifted, revealing a small, heavy-duty safe bolted into the ground. A safe? Sarah's hands trembled. She had lived in this house for years and never once seen this before. Why would Daniel keep a safe in the basement? And more importantly, why had he never told her about it? She tried the handle, but it was locked. There was no keypad, just an old-fashioned combination dial. Her mind raced. What could be inside? Important documents? Money? Or something far more secretive? Standing up, she brushed dust from her jeans, her heart pounding. Should she confront Daniel? Ask him about it casually and gauge his reaction? Or should she wait, watch him carefully, and find out the combination herself? As she turned to leave, she noticed something else. Tiny scratches around the dial, as if it had been used often. Recently. Daniel had been opening this safe. But why? And what was so important that he had hidden it from her? Sarah swallowed hard. The secrets were piling up. The late-night calls, the mysterious woman on the phone, and now this. Proof that Daniel was hiding something right under their home. She wasn't just suspicious anymore. She was scared. The forgotten identity. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her marriage was unraveling. First the late-night calls, then the hidden safe in the basement. Now, as she stood in the attic, sorting through an old box of Daniel's things, her fingers brushed against something unexpected. A worn leather wallet buried beneath a pile of documents. It wasn't Daniel's current wallet. She knew that for certain. Her heart pounded as she pulled it open. Inside, she found an old driver's license, its edges curled with age. The moment she saw the photo, she felt the breath leave her body. It was Daniel, but the name wasn't his. The card read Michael Carter. Different address, different birth date. But the face staring back at her was unmistakably her husband's, just younger, with a different haircut. Sarah's hands trembled as she flipped through the rest of the wallet. Expired credit cards, a folded piece of paper with a phone number scribbled on it, a key she didn't recognize. What was she looking at? She swallowed hard. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a fake ID from his college days, a prank? But deep down she knew better. The way Daniel had been acting lately, so secretive, so distant, it all pointed to something much bigger. Was Daniel even his real name? That night, she placed the wallet back exactly as she had found it. She needed answers, but confronting him outright might not be the smartest move. Instead, she planned to dig deeper. The man she had married wasn't who he claimed to be, and now she was determined to find out who he really was. A visit from a stranger. It was a quiet afternoon when Sarah heard the knock at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and Daniel was still at work. Wiping her hands on a dish towel, she walked to the front door and peered through the peephole. A woman stood on the porch. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled into a messy bun, her face tight with worry. She looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot. Sarah hesitated, then slowly opened the door. "Can I help you?" The woman's eyes flickered with hesitation. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, "Is Daniel home?" Sarah stiffened. Something about the way she said his name sent a chill down her spine. "He's not here right now. Who are you?" The woman exhaled shakily. "My name is Lena." Lena. Sarah's stomach twisted. That name. She had seen it before, in the letters she found in Daniel's hidden box. "I need to talk to you," Lena said. "It's about your husband." Sarah gripped the door tighter. "I don't understand. How do you know Daniel?" Lena's lips trembled. "Because I used to be married to him." The air left Sarah's lungs. "Married?" She stared at the woman, waiting for her to say it was a mistake, that she had the wrong person. But Lena reached into her bag and pulled out a worn photograph. She held it up, and Sarah felt like the ground beneath her had vanished. It was Daniel. Younger, but unmistakable. Standing next to Lena, his arm around her waist, both smiling. But beneath the photo, in faded ink, was a name written in cursive. Michael Carter. Sarah's hands turned ice cold. That was the name on the ID she found. Lena's voice broke through the storm in Sarah's mind. "I don't know what he's told you, but he's not who you think he is. He disappeared years ago, left me, left everything. I thought he was dead." Sarah's pulse roared in her ears. The man she had loved, the man she had trusted for years. Who was he really? The secret double life. Sarah sat frozen on the couch, Lena's words ringing in her ears. "He's not who you think he is." The woman claiming to be Daniel's first wife, his real wife, had just walked out the door, leaving behind more questions than answers. But Sarah wasn't going to sit back and wonder anymore. She needed proof. Once she was alone, she rushed to the basement. The safe. She had to find out what was inside. Her hands trembled as she tried different combinations. His birthday, their anniversary, anything she could think of. Nothing worked. But then she remembered the ID she found. Michael Carter. She punched in the birth date from that card. Click. The safe unlocked. With a deep breath, Sarah swung it open and felt her stomach drop. Inside were stacks of papers, passports, and photographs. Her fingers shook as she picked up a picture of Daniel, no, Michael, standing beside a different woman. She looked happy, holding a little girl in her arms. Sarah's chest tightened as she flipped through more photos. A house, a child's birthday party, Christmas mornings, a different life, a different family. Tears burned in her eyes as she sifted through the documents, marriage certificates, bank accounts, even a second home address in a town 2 hours away. Her hands clenched into fists. He had been lying to her for years, the late-night calls, the secret meetings, the Lena. It all made sense now. Daniel, or Michael, or whoever he really was living 2 lives, 2 wives, 2 homes, 2 entire worlds kept apart by carefully constructed lies. Sarah's breath came in short gasps. She felt sick, furious, betrayed, and then she heard the front door unlock. Daniel was home, and now she knew everything. The dark past unveiled. Sarah barely had time to close the safe before she heard Daniel's footsteps approaching. Her heart pounded as she shoved the documents back, locked the safe, and hurried upstairs, trying to keep her breathing steady. Daniel walked into the living room, setting his keys on the table. He gave her the same warm smile he always did, but now it felt wrong. "How was your day?" he asked casually. Sarah forced a smile, but inside her mind raced. Should she confront him now? Should she pretend she knew nothing? She needed more proof, more answers, something to hold against him when the time came. That night, while Daniel slept, Sarah slipped out of bed and grabbed her laptop. She typed the name Michael Carter into a background check website. Her hands trembled as she hit search. The results loaded, and her blood ran cold. Arrest record, fraud, identity theft, grand larceny, missing person case filed under Michael Carter, suspect in ongoing investigation. Sarah covered her mouth to stifle a gasp. Her husband, the man she had trusted, loved, built a life with, was a criminal. She scrolled further. Then she saw it. A death certificate. Michael Carter was legally dead. Sarah's heart pounded as she reread the document. If Michael Carter was dead, then who was sleeping beside her? Her hands clenched the edge of the laptop. He had faked his death. He had built a new identity. And now she was trapped in a marriage with a man who had erased his past. She turned slowly toward Daniel, lying peacefully beside her. She wasn't just married to a liar. She was married to a ghost. Confrontation and confession. Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay beside Daniel, Michael, staring at the ceiling, her heart racing. The truth burned inside her like a wildfire, threatening to consume her. The man she had loved, trusted, and built a life with was a fraud, a criminal. And he had been lying to her for years. By morning, she had made up her mind. She wouldn't run. She wouldn't pretend. She would confront him. As Daniel sipped his morning coffee at the kitchen table, Sarah placed her phone down, recording everything. Then she met his gaze. Who is Michael Carter? The mug froze halfway to his lips. His eyes darkened, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. What are you talking about? His voice was calm, too controlled. Sarah's fingers dug into the chair. I found your safe, the ID, the bank records, the other family. Silence. For the first time since she had known him, Daniel, her charming, confident husband, looked exposed. His jaw clenched, and he exhaled sharply, setting his mug down. So, he said quietly, you finally know. A shiver ran down her spine. You faked your death, she pressed, her voice trembling. You disappeared, started over. Why, Daniel, what are you running from? He leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. His expression was eerily calm. I was never running, he said. I was hiding. Sarah swallowed hard. From what? His lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. Not what, Sarah? Who? Her breath hitched. Who is looking for you? Daniel's gaze flickered toward the window, as if expecting someone to be watching. When he looked back at her, something in his eyes had shifted. I did things, he admitted. Things I can't undo. I took money from the wrong people, people who don't forgive. I had two choices, stay and die or disappear. He leaned back, exhaling. So I disappeared. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. And what about me? Was I just part of your cover? He sighed, rubbing his temples. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. You were never supposed to know. His voice softened. But I did love you, Sarah. I still do. Tears stung her eyes. You don't get to say that. Not after everything. Daniel watched her carefully. So, what now? Sarah's stomach twisted. She had uncovered the truth, but now she was part of it. And if they found him, would they come for her too? A life in danger. Sarah barely heard Daniel's last words. Her pulse pounded in her ears as the weight of the truth settled over her. He wasn't just a liar. He was a marked man. And now, so was she. She pushed back from the table, her breath shaky. If they find you, will they come for me? Daniel's jaw tightened. They will if they know you know. Sarah's stomach turned. The walls of their home, their marriage, felt like they were closing in. Everything she thought was safe, normal, real, had shattered. Before she could respond, a loud bang rattled the front door. She flinched. Daniel's entire body stiffened. Another bang, a voice, low, menacing, muffled through the wood. Michael! Sarah's breath hitched. They had found him. Daniel's eyes flashed to hers, his face drained of color. Go upstairs, now. But she couldn't move. The door handle twisted. Daniel lunged for the drawer, yanking it open. A gun. He had a gun. Sarah's breath came in gasps. Daniel, what have you done? The door burst open. A man in a dark coat stepped in, his expression unreadable, his eyes cold and knowing. Behind him, two others followed. They moved with the confidence of men who had been here before, who had done this before. Daniel raised the gun, but the first man smirked. "You're out of time, Michael." Sarah's entire body went numb. She had uncovered the truth, but now it might get her killed. Escape and a new beginning. Sarah's heart pounded as the men stepped further into the house. Daniel, Michael, kept his gun raised, but she could see it in his eyes. He wasn't in control anymore. She had a choice to make. Stay and risk everything for a man who had built their life on lies, or leave and save herself. The decision came in a rush. She turned and ran. "Sarah!" Daniel shouted, but she didn't stop. She sprinted up the stairs, her mind racing. She needed to get out. Now behind her, she heard the men moving, Daniel yelling, a scuffle breaking out. She didn't wait to see how it ended. Grabbing her emergency bag from the closet, the one she had packed the moment she uncovered the truth, she threw on a jacket and climbed out the window. The night air was cold as she dropped onto the lawn and ran. She didn't stop until she reached her car at the end of the street. Hands shaking, she started the engine and sped away, leaving behind the house, the lies, and the man she thought she knew. She didn't look back. Days later, Sarah sat in a motel miles away, a new phone in her hand, a train ticket resting beside her. She had emptied their shared account, taken what she needed, and disappeared. Just like he had once. Her fingers hovered over the phone. Should she check the news? See if he had made it out alive? She took a deep breath and powered it off. Daniel was her past. Her future was somewhere else, far away, where no one knew her name. With one last glance in the mirror, Sarah picked up her bag and walked out the door. It was time to start over, time to be free.